Hi everybody, this is Marlene with Eerie News, and today's December 6, 2023, Wednesday, December 6, 2023. And our first story today is out of Stranger Than Fiction Stories and is titled The Children's Bones. Undoubtedly, historic homes develop a reputation for being haunted. In some cases, it's undeserved, and other times, there is no doubt that something still walks the halls and paths of what was once its home. The following is an allegedly true story told by someone who visited Wollaton Hall in the UK several times. Quote, in Wollaton Hall, Nottingham, in the rear staircase is a mural of a Roman priest, worshippers, and attendants going into a temple. When they mean Roman priest, they mean not like Roman Catholic, like as in during Roman times, a Roman temple. All right. It's okay, not outstanding. It's painted onto, I believe, a huge canvas rather than into the plaster. It was made in the 18th century based on the style. So when painters working on a painting, they often draft out the composition first, then work over in layers. Later on in the life of a picture, this underlayer can bleed through and appear in the upper surface as shadows and outlines. In the painting I'm speaking of, which must be at least 16 feet across and 3 high, there's a couple of places where you can see underpainting. A basket of fruit and leaves was moved a bit. Someone has a raised hand that was later pointing. And then in the corner, in the cloak of a priest and in the robes of an attendant, are the faces of two little children, chubby-cheeked, painted beautifully. They don't fit the composition. They are over figures already sketched in where they were. The faces are very well done, although blurry, not a quick outline, so why are the faces bleeding through there? For those watching the video, this right here off to the left, this right there, this is what they're talking about that came through. Alright? So, getting back to the story about the children. So, I've not mentioned Wollaton Hall. It's an Elizabethan building full of little staircases and hidden rooms. Well, there was work done on the building, I think in the 1920s, according to their lovely chief archivist. And behind that painting, covered over, was a little room. And in the room, unknown to everyone, were the remains of two little boys. We don't know how they got in there, stuck, lost, or disposed of, but the door, which was from one of the adjoining rooms, had been lost to time. I don't think the little skeletons have ever been dated. They're probably interred somewhere in the city now. But every time I cross the hallway, I just catch a glimpse of these two little chubby faces under the painting, appearing more and more over time. And I always think some things really can't be hidden. And that was somebody's, explanation of something that they found out when they're visiting there. Now, as to the history of Wollaton Hall, it was built in 1580, for Sir Francis Willoughby. It would take 8 years to complete the house, and no expense was spared. There were about 200 statues decorating the estate, and the chimneys curved to meet in the middle in the form of a crown. 7 miles of wall enclosed the park. In 1642, a fire broke out and destroyed part of the great hall and spread to two sides of the house. By the early 18th century, Queen Anne had created a baronetcy for the family, and they became known as the Middleton family. In 1926, after the death of Godfrey Ernest Percival Willoughby, 10th Baron Middleton, the hall and the 800-acre estate passed into the hands of the Nottingham Corporation, or City Council, due to death duties. The Natural History Museum was opened on the premises soon after. Perhaps it was during this transition that the skeletons described in the report were found. However, there is no mention in any of the newspapers that they had made this discovery. Perhaps it was kept out of the press so it wouldn't hurt the image of the new museum. The museum stayed open except during World War II, when it was occupied at various times for use by the Army as a schoolroom for pupils of Radford Boulevard School and a camp for German Italian prisoners of war. Wollaton Hall is said to be haunted. The most persistent is the white lady who walks the half roof at night, even though she was not seen for many years. There is an orange glow that comes from the window of room 19, which was once Lady Middleton's room, even when no electricity is turned on. An attendant at the hall for 6 years, who lived in an apartment in the stable, saw it more than once. The first time was around 1971, when he was walking through the park with one of the gardeners and his wife. The two men believed someone had broken in, and as they got closer, the light went out. They checked, and the electricity was off at the main switch, and the door to the room was locked. Another time was in 1974, when the attendant saw it, and so did his wife. They didn't investigate, and the burglar alarms did not go off. Room 19 is just below the roof where the white lady is said to walk. Some wonder if she is the one that causes the mysterious footsteps on the stairs, in the rooms, and even on the garden path. In 1973, the hall was being rewired, and an electrician heard footsteps on the uncarpeted wooden treads. He stepped aside in order to allow the person to go past, but all he heard were footsteps go by him. Nobody was there. He felt the temperature become very cold. He dropped his tools, went down the stairs, and out of the building. One of the attendants saw him leave and never return. In 1974, an attendant was standing near the inquiry desk when he heard a low whistle and someone walking across the minstrel's gallery from left to right. He went upstairs to look, thinking it was a live person. The gallery was empty. When he came back down, he heard the same thing again. In the Admiral's bathroom, which is an underground room containing a spring where a member of the Middleton family used to take his daily bath, the sound of laughter has been heard when there is no one there. The museum school officer had an office in the Northeast Tower in 1975. One day she was at the top of the tower, close to rooms that were used for storage. She heard a child's voice coming from behind one of the doors. She couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like an excited girl. She knew the room was empty and locked. In 1975, the curator at Woollerton Hall said that when any of the employees had to do fire watching duties in the hall, none wanted to stay in the hall alone. In the stable block, bedroom doors are closed and opened, and footsteps are heard on the stairs, followed by a knock on the door when there is no one there. In 1980, the museum was redone and a new exhibition was opened in the Great Hall officiated by Lord Middleton. Woollerton Hall was used in the film The Dark Knight Rises in 2011 as Wayne Manor. In 2021, the fossil of Titus the T-Rex, which was found in the Montana Badlands in 2018, were put on display. In 2023, the Antiques Roadshow was filmed on the grounds of Woollerton Hall. As to the discovery of bones belonging to children, there is no story found that connects Woollerton Hall to the story. Many people are familiar with the discovery in 1674 of two children's skeletons found at the Old Tower of London under a staircase that was renamed the Two Princes Staircase. It was believed these were the bones of the princelings, sons of King Edward IV, who died in 1483. The boys were taken by their uncle Richard III and kept in the White Tower, after which time they were never seen again. A perfunctory examination was made of the bones in 1933, which concluded that the remains were those of children roughly the same ages of 9 and 12. They were reburied in Westminster Abbey. Two more bodies that may have been the princes were found in 1789 at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle. Permission has never been granted so forensic scientists can conduct DNA and other forensic analysis on either set of remains in order to make a proper identification. I am not sure, but I believe this Middleton family might be related, or if not directly, to the princess now of England. Their last name, Kate Middleton. I'm not sure, but I think she's related somehow. Anyway, let's go on to the next story. The next story is out of 12 News. Right? It's titled, "Not a Jaguar, not a Cougar, not a Bobcat, Mystery Cat Prowling Phoenix Mountains Preserve is Arizona." It's not a jaguar, mountain lion, bobcat, blah, 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 according to the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Something is prowling through the mountains of Phoenix, and the experts aren't sure what it is, but they are sure what it's not. I can tell you from the suite of felids, or cats in Arizona, it's nothing that I recognize as a native species to Arizona, said Jem DeVos, Assistant Director with the Arizona Game and Fish Department. Arizona is no stranger to big cats. Mountain lions, also called cougars, pumas, and about 40 other names, live in most of the state's arid, rocky habitats and sometimes wander into nearby neighborhoods. Jaguars are occasionally spotted in southern Arizona and can range as far north as the Grand Canyon. However, video of the cat posted by YouTube user Jen Fields shows something very different than the usual suspects. We have ocelots, which are spotted, jaguars spotted, mountain lions that are one color. DeVos explained, "It's not a bobcat for sure, so it's not a native species. Where it came from would be anybody's guess." The video shows that the animal has dark black fur that stands out from the rocks around it, a distinct contrast to the typical pelts of native cats. Social media users suggested it may be a mountain lion or jaguar with melanism, a genetic trait that makes an animal's fur appear much darker than the usual colors. However, to date, there has never been a confirmed case of a black mountain lion, according to the Mountain Lion Foundation. DeVos has a different idea. He thinks it's an exotic animal that escaped captivity. My guess is that it's probably something that was brought at a wildlife auction. Could be from Africa or South America. It's nothing I'm familiar with, but it's not a house cat. Exotic and invasives, though it may be, DeVos doesn't think the department will go after it unless it starts causing problems for people. Until we see some type of unacceptable behavior, a close encounter with a human, an aggressive encounter with a human, then it's out there, and the chances of us being able to go out and find that particular animal again, unless it's constantly getting into trouble, is very, very slim. So for now, the mystery cat is here to stay, and the department will be looking for more reports of sightings and encounters. All big cat encounters, sightings, blah, 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 should be reported, and they give a number. Let's see if we can see this report on here. There's that thing out there, man. Yeah, that's not a house cat. That's pretty big. Look at that. Look at that. Yeah. Let me tell you something. It's difficult sometimes when something is not to scale. Like, in other words, but it makes you, I swear it looks, I'm thinking, looks even as big as a tiger. But yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting. And the reason why I say this is there's always been reports all over the United States of what they call black panthers in places where there are no black panthers or cougars, etc. Well, there's cougars, but there's no black panthers, including even in Florida. But that's very interesting. Well, there you go. Makes you wonder eventually, whatever it is it going to, can it mate? Is it genetically compatible with any of the cats that are out there? Good question. Let's go on to the next story. We're back at Stranger Than Fiction Stories, and this one's titled A Real Lady Killer. Billy Kipkorer Shemirmir, 50, was charged with smothering to death 18 elderly women over a 2-year crime spree, but he insisted he was a very innocent man from a good family. Shemirmir was born in Kenya, Africa, the son of a village chief. In October 2022, he was convicted of capital murder for the death of Mary Brooks, 88, found dead in 2018. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He was accused of killing at least 24 older women in North Texas. Police described where he went door to door at independent living apartments and pretended he was a maintenance worker. He stalked other women at Walmart and followed them home. He would kill them by smothering them with a pillow over their face. He would steal jewelry, cash, and any precious items he could find. Unfortunately, many of the deaths were found to be from natural causes. Police who responded to the crime scene assumed that because the victim was elderly, they had expired from a heart attack and not a homicide. When family members reported items missing, they were assumed to have been misplaced by the victims and not to have been stolen. One has to wonder, considering what came to light afterward, how many lives could have been saved if these deaths would have been properly investigated. In March 2018, Mary Bartell survived an attack and described the man who forced his way into her apartment. He wore green gloves and made her lie on the bed while he pushed a pillow on her face. A pacemaker kept her alive until a neighbor found her and called 911. A sting operation was set up, and the evening after Bartell was attacked, Shemirmir was apprehended. Police had seen him throwing a red jewelry box into a dumpster. They inspected the item and found the name of Lou T. Harris. When they went to her home, the doors were locked. Inside, they found her dead on the floor. Investigators reviewed hundreds of cases, and medical examiners changed the death certificates from natural causes to undetermined to or homicidal violence. Shamirmir was hit with 22 counts of capital murder and several others were not brought before a grand jury for indictment. The Dallas County prosecutors dropped 11 other capital murder charges. He was eventually found guilty in the deaths of two women, Mary Brooks, 87, and 81-year-old Lou T. Harris. He was sentenced in April 2022 to two consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, which the Dallas County District Attorney's Office said would ensure there would be no chance of Mr. Shamirmir to die anywhere except in a Texas prison. In June 2023, Shamirmir appealed the first of two capital murder convictions. 2 months later, the Texas prosecutor said he wouldn't seek the death penalty. Greg Willis, the Collins County District Attorney, said, Billy Shamirmir is an evil person who preyed upon our most vulnerable citizens. Although he is certainly deserving of a death sentence, my decision is informed by the fact that he has already been tried 3 times in another county and he will never be a free man again. Ultimately, the statement was more prophetic and he believed at the time. In September of 2023, he was found dead in his cell at Caulfield Unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas. He was killed by a cellmate who was in prison for a murder conviction. Dallas County District Attorney John Cruzat said Shamirmir was killed after making inappropriate comments sexual in nature towards his cellmate's children. The cellmate beat Shamirmir, dragged him out of his cell, and killed him while other inmates watched. No one intervened, and Shamirmir may have been stabbed with a pen. The prison was in lockdown, and somehow the cellmate opened the door and killed him. Those ladies can now rest easy in their graves. Talk about karma being served real quick. That's a pretty good example of it. Now let's stay on this crazy killer theme. This other story is out of the Mirror, titled Notorious Cannibal Killed Again by Slitting Cellmate's Throat with Razor Blade. I'm telling you, these people, they can't help themselves, whether they're in or out of jail. A notorious cannibal has killed again while in prison by slitting his cellmate's throat with a razor blade, it's being reported. Yegor Komarov, 25, is said to have slit the throat of his 42-year-old cellmate's neck with a razor blade. It is alleged he was found lying next to the corpse in Vyborg pretrial detention center. Komarov was jailed for 19 years in a strict penal colony after the headless body of a businessman fell out of his car boot when he crashed his Mitsubishi into a road safety barrier in Sortavala, a town in northern Russia. At that time, he admitted, "In general, I like killing people." Oh, he's pretty honest about it, isn't he? He confessed to killing another man aged 38 because he wanted to taste human flesh. He said, quote, "When he died, I gutted his neck and tasted the blood and meat, but the meat was difficult to cut, as the knife was blunt, and I did not like the taste of his veins." End quote. He chewed the throat of one victim and stabbed the other 20 times. Last year, there was speculation that Komarov was the cannibal who had been reporting as joining Wagner Private Mercenary Army to fight in, well, I don't know, whatever. In fact, at the time his trial has not been completed, it was another cannibal who was sent out. New footage has emerged of a masked Komarov chilling testimony when he initially denied he ate a man before admitting he had done so spontaneously and felt no remorse. I'm telling you. He was asked by a state investigator, "Did you really eat a man?" He replied, "No, I didn't eat a man. It's heavy. It's just bones. I'm so skinny, how could I eat a man?" The investigator replied, "Some part of it?" To which Komarov said, "Well, yes." The rest of the conversation went as this. Investigator, "Are you ready to eat a man again?" Komarov, "Do you have one?" Investigator, "Why did you eat a man?" Komarov, "Just to try. I didn't eat just one bite." Investigator, "How did you get the urge?" Komarov, "Spontaneously." On killing and eating the businessman, he said, I'm sorry, but I am not remorseful." Asked to explain, he just replied, "You know." All right. Before disposing of his 38-year-old victim in a St. Petersburg park, Komarov told how he sliced off the man's tongue, took it home, and cooked it with butter. "I tried it, but I didn't like it," he said. "But I probably would have liked another part of the body." Holy crap. He was born in St. Petersburg and lived with his parents and grandparents in a communal flat. His social media said he was interested in anarcho-privatism Oh boy. And the elixirs of immortality, as well as psychedelic music. Hmm. His alleged latest killing came when he was in a pretrial detention center appealing his 19-year jail term imposed in late June this year. Reports is that he has blah blah blah. Under Russia's laws, murderers, rapists, and cannibals and other hardened criminals can only take one to make a. Okay, this is he's in a pretrial detention appealing his sentence, and he kills a cellmate. So much for that appeal. That's not going anywhere. I can tell you that right now. It's over. Next story, back to Stranger Than Fiction stories. This one's titled Worth More Dead Than Alive, Trafficking in Human Remains. Donating your body to science doesn't guarantee that it will be used for this purpose. Instead, it might become merchandise in a national network of human remains traffickers. Not even giving your body to a university can keep it safe. On Wednesday, June 14, 2023, Cedric Lodge, the morgue manager who worked at Harvard Medical School since 1995, was indicted. He is facing federal charges of selling heads, brains, skin, and other body parts. These were taken from cadavers donated to Harvard Medical School for research and education. Harvard fired him on May 6, 2023. He allegedly took the dissected body parts to his home in New Hampshire, 60 miles away, where he, along with his wife Denise, sold them to traffickers across the United States from 2018 through August 16, 2022. This was during the time he worked in the morgue, which received cadavers as part of the anatomical gift program. Harvard insists no other employees are facing charges. Lodge allowed buyers access to the morgue to make their purchase or ship them out, in some cases through the United States Postal Service. His wife Denise worked at the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services as a data analyst until 2014. Pictures on Denise's Facebook profile show a woman with a shaven head with what appears to be a satanic motif tattooed on it. It is not clear if the woman with the tattoo is Denise or someone else. Buyers have also been named in the indictment. They are Joshua Taylor of Westlawn, Pennsylvania, and Katrina McLean of Salem, Massachusetts, who owned and operated a business called Cat's Creepy Creations in Peabody, Massachusetts. McLean resold some of the specimens to buyers in other states. One of them is Jeremy Polly, who is executive director and curator of the Memento Mori Museum. According to his Facebook, he owns the Grand Wunderkammer, which sells odd and unusual items to the public and to museums exhibits. Polly was the one who provided the name of Cedric Lodge as one of his suppliers. Polly, 41, has previous arrests. In August 2022, he was charged with abuse of a corpse, receiving stolen property, and dealing in the proceeds of unlawful activities. This involved Candace Chapman Scott, who worked at a crematorium, who was partnered with the University of Arkansas. She is accused of selling the corpses of 2 stillborn babies meant to be cremated and selling them instead to Polly. He is known to purchase pelvis, antiques, and very old skulls belonging to children. Prior to this, in October 2020, McLean sold skin and 2 dissected faces for $600. Polly tanned the skin, making it into leather, and sold it back to McLean. In the indictment, Polly paid $8,800 to McLean and a total of $40,049 to Taylor, all through PayPal. Polly has over 5,000 followers on Facebook. Harvard is now left trying to explain to the families of the deceased, who in many cases donated the body of their loved ones, that the corpses were desecrated and not studied, or they were studied but desecrated because they were not disposed of correctly. Since then, family members have sued HMS Morgue, which is Harvard Medical School Morgue, along with Cedric Lodge and his supervisors. In August 2023, Jeremy Polly, who was accused of illegally buying and selling human remains, went to court on 4 charges levied against him. He initially told police he legally brought 3 skeletons and other body parts, but this was before police found multiple buckets in his basement full of human remains. He was charged for buying half of a head, a whole head missing a skull cap, 3 brains with a skull cap, a heart, a liver, a lung, 2 kidneys, a female pelvis, a piece of skin with a nipple, and 4 hands for $4,000. The transaction took place over Facebook Marketplace and sent through USPS. The illegal sales took place after Polly's ex-wife, Sarah Polly, went into the basement after he moved out and found the gallon buckets with the horrible remains. A few weeks earlier, police had visited the house after an anonymous tip of possible human body parts being sold on Facebook, but they did not have a search warrant and did not visit the basement. She feared Polly would now try to frame her for what she had discovered. This investigation led to Cedric Lodge at Harvard Medical School's morgue, Candace Chapman Scott, the mortuary worker in Arkansas, Katrina McLean, and Joshua Taylor. By the summer of 2022, Polly had become violent with his wife, who once posed with specimens he was trying to sell. She told police he threatened to kill her and cut her into pieces if she ever left him. This information was part of the temporary restraining order she sought for her protection. He said he wasn't afraid of doing prison time since he did a stretch in 2003 for stabbing his girlfriend. Oddity collectors buy and sell objects of interest having to do with natural history, taxidermy, antiquities, quack medicine, and the paranormal. Polly has agreed to a plea deal and is now a cooperating witness. These felony counts could get him a total of 15 years in prison plus probation and a fine. He is out on a $50,000 bond and is set to return to court in October 2023. A pretrial conference is scheduled for November. Okay, you know what? It's not only who sells it, it's like who collects this stuff. All right, but apart from that, what happens is that supposedly these bodies that are being donated either by the person themselves before they die or by the family to these anatomical schools for all these different universities, these universities have contracts with funeral homes that have crematories to dispose of the remains, and they were like saying, well, what a waste, we can make money off of this. And it's sad to say that they were making a lot of money off of it. And on to our next story. I'm telling you, this is a theme for tonight. This is out of the Denver Gazette, and it's titled An Oddity and Curiosity. Colorado Springs Denver residents a mutual love of hearses. Hearses are like Pringles to art prints. You can't have just one. Through the years, he's honed half a dozen, one of which he sold last year to some folks operating a haunted house in Pueblo. The quirky hobby maker makes his house near Fort Carson hard to miss, though he's never had complaints from the neighbors. Parked in the driveway is a cherry red 1972 Cadillac Miller Meteor hearse he bought off eBay in 2008 for about $3,000, a pretty good price for that era. The car's a celebrity, said Prince, president of the Pikes Peak Hearse Association. When you have hearses, everyone knows where you live. Not only does the hearse sport a paint job that glitters with sparkles and houses mud flaps with actual chains, but the body of the car is jacked way up on four wheels, drive tires. You need a stepping stool to climb into the cab, where oops, there's a fake skeleton arm and hand lying on the floor mat. Glance behind and you'll see a full-size casket in the back, sorry guys, along with a scythe and an axe. If you didn't know better, you might be concerned you're about to go for a long drive from which you'll never return. Prince's huge backyard is a showcase for his and his family's grand love affair. There's his ambulance hearse and two more regular hearses, each owned by his two daughters, who used them as their first cars. Boy. His oldest daughter, Susie Walls, even took her driving test in a hearse more than a decade ago, a first for the employee who did her road test at El Paso County Motor Vehicle Department. Why a hearse? Why not? Walls said. While Prince doesn't drive his souped-up hearse on the daily, Kelly Sajek, another member of the Pikes Peak Hearse Association, drives her dark blue 1994 Cadillac hearse everywhere. She's also a collector, 3 regular hearses plus 1 hearse ambulance. She's an oddball, she says, and that's why she loves them. Plus, they have all that rich history. Okay, that's what they call it, rich history. Okay. I love how they feel. They drive and ride awesome. Cadillacs especially, said the Colorado Spring resident. A lot of times, they do get negative attention. I haven't experienced that, but there are people who go up to some members of Pikes Peak Hearse Association and say, why do you want to do that? It's disrespectful. Prince might use that question as an opportunity to bring up one of his favorite topics, death. He likes to use his hearse and casket to destigmatize the fear around death and how people understand it's a natural part of life. People don't want to think or talk about death, he said. This short-circuits somebody's brain into thinking about it. We have this casket so people can touch it. When can you ever touch this stuff? That's the education part. And he has a theory about society's collective fear. You think if you talk about it, it'll happen to you. As part of his mission, he's a regular at community events, including the Emma Crawford Coffin Races and Festival in Manitou Springs and HearseCon, a Denver summer festival hosted by the Denver Hearse Association. I was born into an older family, Prince says. Death has always been part of my life. Instead of being scared about it, I research it. Finding fellow hearse lovers. More than 25 years ago, Zachary Byron Helm and Jeff Brown decided to stop annoying their girlfriends with their nonstop talk about hearses and find other kindred souls they could jabber to about their beloved hobby. It wasn't easy. The duo stopped people driving hearses on streets and stocked cars they found parked. Friends would alert them every time they spotted a hearse, which meant they found themselves driving around Boulder and Longmont, and even as far away as Trinidad, to leave notes wrapped in Ziploc bags on the vehicles. It turns out leaving notes on cars in the middle of the night is not a way people are comfortable meeting new associates and friends, said Helm, president of the Denver Hearse Association. But club membership did gradually grow, though it took around 2 or 3 years before they were able to get more than 4 cars together. Nowadays, the association has 30 to 40 members, fluctuating when new members buy new cars or members sell their cars for financial or mechanical reasons and leave the group. They didn't realize it would be as big an investment in time and money as they can be, Helm said. When you have an old car, you can spend as much money on it as you have. It's a sentiment Prince also has found to be true. They're kind of like boats, a hole in the water you throw money into. During Halloween season, from late September through October, the Denver Hearse Association meets every weekend. The rest of the year, they get together once or twice a month to take their cars for cruises to movies, bingos, and dinner events. Where they go depends on if they're parking for 10 to 25 hearses. Helm's love for old car began thanks to his sister, who had a fondness for collecting old Chevy Impalas. The macabre factor first caught Helm's attention. They carried bodies, but as time went on, the morbid fascination lessened and his appreciation for the automotive aspect increased. They have an immense amount of charm as an oddity and curiosity, said, but if that's your primary interest, you won't last long in the hobby. You have to have something else that compels you, because once you've exhausted the novelty of having one and the hollow adulation of the public you get at car shows and stoplights, the hobby won't hold much for you if you don't like the cars personally. These days, Helm doesn't reveal his full collection of hearses, but his main squeeze is a 1971 Cadillac Superior. Cadillacs are the main go-to for hearses, as the company carried a contract with hearse builders and supplied the vehicles for a long time, Helm said, but occasionally you'll see Lincoln, Pontiac, Crown Victoria, Buick, and Oldsmobile hearses. Repairs will be many. If there's a hearse in your future, find yourself a good mechanic, or become one yourself. The cars, as many owners know, are rife with issues. It's a primary reason Helm became a mechanic. They're like any classic car, tough to own and require a lot of love and attention, he said. Engine swamps, obtuse electrical problems, dead transmissions, those things will eat you alive. I reached the point in the hobby where I could either accept the permanently broken down car or learn to work on it myself and be prepared for potential sticker shock at the gas pump. Prince's hearse gets 8.5 miles to the gallon. His daughter's hearses get 14 miles. Sajik's Cadillac, on the other hand, with its Corvette LT1 engine, gets 20 to 22 miles to the gallon. Helm is blasé about the gas. He's always driven only large and heavy vehicles. I've gotten bad mileage in my whole life, he said. The 70s cars get bad gas mileage. That's an era in which they had little understanding of weight reduction in cars. I love my old cars, but the engineering wasn't there. The styling was over the top and wonderful. The future of hearses. Cadillac is still making hearses, though not as many, Helm says. He attributes it to a shift in the culture around death. More people are leaning towards a more affordable cremation than a pricey burial, but it's a good thing, he says, that newer generations are moving from the religious stigmas around death. I don't think people are as tied to these ideas that used to define the death care industry, that you didn't love them if you didn't get a big enough casket, Helm said. It sucks for my hobby because they're making less of them than before, but from a moral standpoint, it's a good people are realizing you don't need to feel guilty about not putting someone in the ground and giving them the biggest headstone. No. I think the reason why people are opting for cremation, etc., is the cost. Some of these funerals, when we're talking here, viewings, burial, the headstone, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. thousands of dollars. And some people have private cemeteries. These are like small family cemeteries. I've run across a few where basically the upkeep is done by family members, and in other words, they don't charge you to go and bury it. You just have to get somebody obviously that can dig up the ground and put the casket there, and then you pay maybe somebody that does the tombstone to put it. But even so, even on that, it can become very pricey. I really think that that's why people are turning away from the traditional funeral hearse thing. But anyway, that was a pretty weird set of stories. What do you think? Anyway, I'll be back soon with more of strange and unusual things. Till next time.